Hello, everyone. Welcome to Global Express. This is where we lay bare the issues that affect India and its neighborhood. India and Canada are in the midst of an extremely unseemly spat, a diplomatic standoff, a sharp escalation of tensions that has taken the kind of turn that we normally associate with India and Pakistan. It's unraveling pretty fast. Tit for tat expulsions of consular staff for the second time. This time, Canada has named the Indian High Commissioner as a person of interest, and its Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, alleges India violated Canadian sovereignty. The US and UK have added to the diplomatic firestorm, calling on India to cooperate with the investigation. Should India cooperate? The Canadian Mounted Police claim they have over a dozen cases of Canadian citizens of Indian origin facing intimidation by Indian diplomats and consular officials. Is there more to this than meets the eye? Is this personal? Is this a spat between the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau after he publicly confronted Prime Minister Narendra Modi? And Prime Minister Narendra Modi demanded that people in Canada speaking against India should be arrested. Or is this Trudeau playing the Khalistan card, accusing India of transnational repression, using the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar to shore up his own popularity at home before polls? I mean, without the Canadian Sikh leader Jagmeet Singh, who heads the New Democratic Party, the NDP, without that 2% Sikh vote, he is in real danger of his own Liberal Party MPs replacing him. Neither he nor his government will then survive polls until next year. So, how much truth is there to charges that India charges that Canada is stoking a Khalistan threat in Punjab? How real is the Khalistan separatist threat? Is Punjab being stoked? Is Pakistan stoking the pro-Khalistan extremists in Canada? As Vanessa Lloyd, a Canadian security intelligence officer, has testified before Canada's Foreign Interference Commission in September. Talking to us today is Ambassador Yashvardhan Sinha, India's former ambassador to the United Kingdom and Sri Lanka, who served in Pakistan and the UAE. Welcome, Ambassador Sinha.
Thank you. Thank you, Neena.
Also with us is the award-winning Toronto-based independent journalist, Mr. Prabhjot Singh, who's tracked India-Canada relations and the specter of Khalistani separatists in Canada and the US for some time now. Welcome, Mr. Singh.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And last but not least, Mr. Siddharth Chattopadhyay, former IPS officer from Punjab, who served as the Director General of Police in the state, headed a probe into the sale of illegal narcotics in Punjab, arrested powerful politicians, personally eliminated, I believe, heads of terror groups, and served both on the Bangladesh and the Jammu-Kashmir border. Let's start with you, Ambassador Sinha. How do you see this undiplomatic standoff playing out? I mean, Justin Trudeau's half-truths have been exposed for what they are. He's finally admitted to the Canadian Foreign Interference Committee on Wednesday that, I mean, exactly what India has been saying all this time, that Canada only provided intelligence and did not provide proof before publicly accusing India of killing Nijjar. And India has repeatedly said these Canadian accusations are allegations that India is not conducting transnational repression as shown by the investigation by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. It's not been backed up by any evidence so far. Yet, Justin Trudeau has lashed out not once but twice. First at the G20 summit, and which India was hosting, and again at Laos last week at the ASEAN Asia Summit. And Trudeau says he's returned from G20 convinced India was not going to play ball. So was he listening to bad advice, Ambassador? Because there is also an admission by Guru Patwant Singh Pannoon that he has been advising and talking to Justin Trudeau, and which is probably what prompted Trudeau to go public with all of these allegations of espionage, assassinations, as he's done. What do you think should be India's next play?
Neena, I think we need to see this in perspective. I think what is happening, in my opinion, is unprecedented and extraordinary. I have dealt with Pakistan for 10 years out of my 37 years in the diplomatic service, both in our High Commission in Islamabad and at headquarters at various ranks. I remember I was Deputy Secretary after the 93 bomb blast in Mumbai, which took a large number of lives, and we handed over dossiers containing evidence, hard evidence to Pakistan. Then in 2008 and 2009, after the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai, I was heading the division, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, and MEA, and I personally handed over a large number of dossiers. Now, obviously, Pakistan would dismiss those dossiers as either incorrect, but they had to react because there was hard evidence given.
So,
In
Ambassador,
this
are you
case,
saying that there is no
in this
such
case,
dossier given to us?
exactly. So what I'm trying to say is that in this case, as far as I know, there is no hard evidence shared with us. It is just accusations, extraordinary, preposterous accusations. Mind you, I have been High Commissioner in Sri Lanka and in the UK, Ambassador in Venezuela. 37 years, I have never come across a situation where the head of the mission, the head of the embassy or the high commission, the ambassador or the high commissioner is personally accused of, or at least termed as a person of interest, which is a euphemism for him being wanted for investigation as if he's a guilty party. Of course, he has
But
to
there
be
is,
proven guilty. But what I'm trying to say is that never has it happened, at least in my way, the high commissioner and
yeah.
of a democracy for country and a country which is a fellow member of the Commonwealth. So I think the accusations made by Prime Minister Trudeau initially and regurgitated now do not stand the test of scrutiny as of now. Now, let him produce more evidence. It's taken him over a year and a half, or a year and a few months, at least a year and a month since the G20 last year, and he has not produced a shred of evidence. Now, if it's based on intelligence sharing of the Five Eyes countries, then the Five Eyes countries and he have to decide what to do. But as far as India is concerned, I mean, I saw his statement yesterday, extraordinary. He says, your security agencies are involved. Let's investigate your security. You are going to investigate
But there
our
is a
security
twist.
agency.
There is a twist,
Excuse me, Prime
Ambassador, to
Minister.
this.
I think it is preposterous.
But there is an added, twist. I mean, you're talking about the Five Eyes. I mean, there is no way that Canada would have had access to any of this intelligence if it wasn't handed over to them by one of the Five Eyes, in this case, the US. And the role of the US is also, I mean, it's a bit iffy because yesterday, the US Department of State spokesperson, Matthew Miller, he's described the Canadian allegations as extremely serious. He says we want to see the government of India cooperate with Canada and its investigation. Is this Washington's mixed messaging? I mean, an Indian investigative team has landed in the US after a case was filed in a New York court in which senior Indian officials have been named in the failed assassination attempt against Guru Patwant Singh Panoon, the
I'm aware
Khalistan
of all that.
separatists.
I'm aware of all that.
And the main
What
accused,
Matt Miller is saying is nothing new.
but the main accused has been extradited from the Czech Republic. So unlike
Yes,
Canada's
they have
intent,
Nikhil Gupta. They have a gentleman called Nikhil Gupta. Who
Nikhil
is
Gupta.
Nikhil Gupta? What his bona fides are, let them find out. But as far as involvement of the government of India or an agent, and more importantly, the High Commissioner of India to Canada, now he's been withdrawn, the former High Commissioner, is simply preposterous because I know how intelligence agencies work in different countries that I've served in 8 or 9 countries, 9 countries. I know exactly how agencies work. And the High Commissioner, the head of the mission, he's not an intelligence operative, he's a diplomat. And Sanjay Kumar Verma is an outstanding diplomat whom I know personally. He has served in various countries. He was ambassador in Japan last. There is absolutely no way that he could be involved in anything like this, number one. Number two, for Canada to request that the diplomatic immunity of the High Commissioner plus 5 or 6
Yeah.
diplomats. I mean, we would never do it for a single one of them, but for the High Commissioner, I mean, I mean, it's bizarre, absolutely bordering on bizarre. And one more point, if I may add, the spokesperson just gave a statement today. India has requested extradition of 26 people from Canada,
That's right.
including members of the so-called Lawrence Bishnoi gang. What
Mm.
has Canada done on that? Nothing. So I think it's amazing because we've been raising this issue. I have dealt with this issue in London. I'm acutely aware. I have dealt with this issue when I was handling Pakistan. I am acutely aware of the threat posed by these extremists, Khalistanis, to the territorial integrity and sovereignty of my country. However, the good part is that in Punjab, in India, Sikhs are peace-loving. They do not subscribe to this agenda, and they are at the forefront of guarding India's territorial integrity and sovereignty. I mean, it's been, if you go back to history, the martyrdom of Guru Arjan Dev Ji and the teachings of Guru Gobind Singh Ji, who happened to be born in the same, my hometown. So I mean, it's absolutely amazing how these people, vocal, vociferous minority sitting in Canada or wherever else, are demanding something which the majority of Sikhs, in fact, the overwhelming majority of Sikhs, not only in India, but also in those countries, do not want. So I think we must see this in the total perspective.
This request for the extradition of the 26 Sikhs, including and Lawrence Bishnoi gang, when was that actually made? Has it been sitting there for the last how many years?
I'm sure the 26 requests weren't made all together. They were
Yeah,
done over a period of time.
yeah.
So I'm sure the Canadian authorities are aware of all those details, and I'd like them to come up and tell us what they have done about those requests, or have they just sat on them?
Let me
So
go to Mr. Singh. Why has Canada chosen to take this path to publicly embarrass India, Mr. Singh? I mean, what are the implications of Canada's claim? Is India in danger of being painted a rogue state, like Israel, which doesn't hesitate in targeting and eliminating its political enemies? I mean, you must have read the Washington Post story, everybody must have, which looks clearly as if it was planted and designed to embarrass India. It talks about a closed door meeting between Canadian officials and India's national security advisor in Singapore, in which the Canadian mounted police officers accused India of jeopardizing the security of Canadian citizens. So, what was the point of this leak, so to speak?
You see, we must understand this problem in perspective. So the problem of Canada patronizing, supporting, or whatever, anti-India elements or pro-Khalistan elements is a very long story. It's not like recent or new one. It started right when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister.
That's
At
right.
that time, she had also asked the then Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau, the father of the current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, he should take action against those people who are those who are being harbored in Canada, and they are carrying out anti-India campaign and carrying out pro-Khalistan campaign in Canada. At that time, even the Liberal government, at that time also it was Liberal government, so they never took any action on that. And then this thing gradually died down, and again, time and again, when Indian Prime Ministers visited Canada, Dr. Manmohan Singh visited Canada in 2010, and then Mrs. Modi himself, he visited Canada in 2014. At
When
that
Stephen
time,
Harper was Prime Minister.
when Dr. Manmohan Singh came here, that was for G20 summit. You see, at that time, the agreements and the joint statements, when they were issued, they said everything is so good, and the relations are going well, and they wanted bilateral trade and everything to go up, and they signed so many agreements. Same was done when Mr. Modi came as Stephen Harper, then the conservative government was there. So everything was going very well. 2014, India-Canada relations after Pokhran, blast when Canada withdrew its diplomats and issued sanctions against India. So things
This
had
is because
settled down and things were coming to normal.
because when we use a plutonium phosphorus plant.
That's right, exactly. And Canada said this has violated the agreement under which they supplied the nuclear fuel. So whatever. So ultimately, those things settled down, and Dr. Manmohan Singh came, and Mr. Modi came, and things were going well. But when Mr. Modi came to Canada, at the same time, there were elections. Federal elections were due. You see, and it was just a 2-day visit. And afterwards, conservatives lost, and liberals came to power. And India's relations again started getting from bad to worse with Canada. Acquisition started again. So there is something in between also, like what happened? Why, when in 2014, the joint communique said so much, so, like we are so cordial, so friendly, so warm.
So what
and
went
we
wrong?
must, what went wrong within a year or 2 years? And then the relations never stabilized and from bad to worse. So then the acquisitions of Canada harboring Khalistanis, this has been there for now almost 40 years, 45 years. And even 84 Royce, and then protests in Canada
So the question that if I can interject, I wanted to find out, is there any truth to what Mr. Justin Trudeau is accusing India of? I mean, yes, it's only intel. Right now, he hasn't backed it up with proof. But what gives him the, the moxie to accuse India of something as, dastardly as bumping off, it's as Sikh separatists?
You see, there is no denying the fact that Khalistanis are very active, hyperactive in Canada. And every now and then they will hold a demonstration outside Indian missions, maybe a consulate general in Toronto, maybe consulate general in Vancouver, or high commissioner in Ottawa. So that's a known fact. And every time they even take out tableau showing how Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated, things like this. So that hype is real. Nobody can deny that. And at the same time, some of the people who are active in Khalistan lobby, they have been complaining to the government of Canada. Okay? They have been receiving threats, including the NDP leader, though he didn't admit it. He's Jagmeet Singh. He's known. He has a soft corner for Khalistan. He's the first Sikh to head a national party in Canada, Canadian politics. And his party was very close to the ruling Liberal, because ruling Liberal were minority, and they had an agreement, supply and confidence agreement, under which they supported Liberal government so that minority government could survive so long in Canada. But now they broke off that agreement, and Jagmeet. So it's all, maybe when India says it's politics of vote, it could be. You see, the Sikhs are or Punjabis or Indians in Canada are about 2 million people. Maybe 50% of them are Punjabis and Sikhs. So some of the ridings where the Sikhs are dominating, like in Brampton area, in close to Toronto, in Surrey, close to Vancouver, maximum of Sikhs, they come. And they even rose up to like Harjit Singh Sarjan became a defense minister, Navdeep Bains, all those ministers. And even like when in 93, for the first time, 3 Indian origin people were elected to House of Commons, including Harb Dhaliwal, Gurbaksh Mali, and Jag Baduria. So Harb Dhali was the first cabinet minister, first Indo-Canadian to become a cabinet minister in federal government. So since then, like Punjabis have been holding good political positions, and that's why Jagmeet was given so much of importance. And he became, though he's the only Punjabi in NDP's caucus.
I see.
There's no other Indian.
I see.
Conservatives, the other main opposition party, has so many Indians. They have Tim Uppal is the number 2 man in the party, and there are others also, Punjabis, in representing conservatives. But liberals have the maximum strength. So that's why they're saying, because the Liberal government is now facing a threat, not a threat, but very open challenge from the Conservatives. They want this government to go, though there is still a year to go. So conservatives brought in two no confidence motions already during the current session, but those were defeated because both NDP, though it broke off that agreement, and Bloc Québécois, the main party from Quebec state, they voted for against the resolution. That's why he survived. But you never know. Now this controversy is a major controversy. But this time, what is happening in Canada in politics is all the political parties, including conservative, they have rallying behind Prime Minister Trudeau, especially because they say this is the question of sovereignty of Canada. It's a question of, so they are supporting. But then within Liberal Party, there is a revolt. People are saying Trudeau is no more acceptable because he has failed on all fronts. So Trudeau made a statement, okay, please, this is not a time for a revolt in the party. We have to fight New Delhi. So that is a situation, and especially when you're talking about the Sikh vote or Punjabi vote or Indian vote, so Indian community is divided. So the people who are Punjabis, they are supporting liberals, but others are opposing it.
I want to get to this divided community, because you have Gurput Patwan Singh Panoon now calling on all Hindus in Canada to leave the country. He's threatened Air India some months ago, and threatening to blow it up. And he's now threatened a Hindu Canadian MP. Now, this is a man who's sitting in the US, maybe if I could just go back to Ambassador Sinha as well. Isn't this, this would be embarrassing. I mean, this is basically putting security for common citizens at risk.
Neena, I think
And
very
should
interesting.
India do something about Gurpant Singh Panoon with the US? Should they not make a...
Of course. In fact, Mr. Singh made some very interesting points on the local Canadian politics. So, I think as far as Panoon is concerned, spokesperson for the Sikhs for Justice, he's in the US, and we all know who's sheltering him. I mean, the funny part is that under the guise of freedom of speech and expression, he can threaten to kill Indian politicians, diplomats, blow up planes with impunity. Now, can you imagine that if somebody is sitting in India or better still in Lebanon or in Gaza threatening another country like this, what would be his or her fate? So I think we have to see, again, if you see everything in context, I think that you mentioned Five Eyes earlier. It took 1 year, I mentioned this earlier, 13 months for Prime Minister Trudeau to again sort of open up on this whole issue. Now, is it that his allies are feeding him driblets of information? But I don't know why, because you mentioned that a team, an inquiry team was in Washington. Of course, that's another, and I think if I remember correctly, I read today somewhere that the State Department spokesman, the same gentleman, Matt Miller, had expressed some sort of satisfaction at the outcome of the actions taken by India, etc. But that is a different track, and we are not really discussing that. What I'm trying to say is that even if it is information based on intelligence gathering, surely you could put that into hard evidence and supply it to the government like we did. And again, go back 2611. You recall 2611, we picked up intercepts. We picked up conversations based on which our security agencies made documents which we provided to the Pakistanis and requested their cooperation. And in fact, a judicial farce did start, and it never reached a conclusion.
Any conclusion, yes.
Says that we can cooperate with any country, any friendly country, as long as there is something to investigate, where evidence is shared.
But there is
you can hide the sources. We all know how to do it. You hide sources. We all know who's providing the information in the first place. So that's nothing to hide. But the identity of the informer can easily be hidden and information shared with the Indian government, and through in a civilized manner, through diplomatic channels and not through megaphone diplomacy, cooperation requested. But unfortunately, we are dealing with a situation where a gentleman can stand and give a press conference, stand in parliament, and say whatever he feels like, unmindful of the close relations between our two countries for a long time. It's nothing that it's happened now, that relations, we have such a vibrant diaspora contributing meaningfully to Canada, and we have these people-to-people links. But just one point before I end, the Kanishk bombings, the much wanted, respected RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, if I got it right, came on television and made some statements without backing them up with any evidence. What did they do on Kanishk? Did they bury the Kanishk aircraft bombing investigation? They bungled it. Was it done purposely? Whether it was done, I mean, there are so many things we can open a can of worms. But the idea here is to try and resolve these issues in a diplomatic way. And again, I reiterate, two democracies, members of the Commonwealth, members of the United Nations, we can deal with each other in a more civilized manner.
Yeah,
instead
absolutely.
of making
I
accusations.
do agree with you
And
on
then threatening the High Commissioner, I mean, the head of mission. I go back to that point because I feel personally, I was one myself.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. Singh, if I can come back to you, there is the statement that this Jagmeet Singh has made, saying that all members of the RSS in the country, in Canada, should be, basically looked at and examined and so on and so forth. Doesn't that also create one security nightmare, which is what I wanted to find out about? The second thing is about the media, the non-Sikh media. They seem to have taken a completely different line. I mean, they've paid a price. Apparently, there's an Indo-Canadian journalist who's got beaten up for writing on the Khalistanis, a young man called Rishi Nagar. And Canadian newspapers like the National Post have accused Trudeau of allowing Sikh extremism to flourish within Canadian borders. I mean, is this a valid? I mean, is there a divide in the media as well about supporting Khalistanis? And I mean, apparently, even that when the paper came out and trashed that float, which was being used in a Khalistani parade in 2023, where they showed Prime Minister Indira by her Sikh bodyguards.
Yeah, you see, as I said, when you look at the political history of Canada, especially from the angle of Indian diaspora, initially, when people from India came to Canada about 120 years ago, 140 years ago, they were mostly Punjabis and Sikhs. And initially, when we look at politics, most of the people elected to House of Commons or different provincial assemblies, they call it provincial parliaments here. So they were mostly Sikhs. But in last 20 years, the Hindu community too has grown a lot. Now we have Anita. You see, she is a Minister of Transport. She was also Minister for Defense, first woman to become a defense minister of a country outside India.
Wow.
So then we have Mr. Chandra Arya. Then there was, he made that statement about the journalist attack in House of Commons. And he's the one who is opposed when another MP, Sukh Dhaliwal, demanded a fresh inquiry into Kanishka, and he signed a petition to House of Commons. So then there are others who are like from conservatives. There were some Hindus who were elected to House of Commons. Deepak Oberoi was the foremost of them, though he moved from Africa to Canada, but his family came from Punjab. So he remained the longest serving MPs. So he was also very staunch Hindu supporter, Hindu movement supporter in Canada. So there have been now different parties are represented by both Sikhs and Hindus. But initially, when if you look at the history, when people from India used to come, Gurdwara used to serve as community centers, the only places where people would come, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, everybody would come, Indian community would assemble and meet at Gurdwaras. But now things have changed. After 84, if you see the Canadian scenario, number of Hindu temples, Hindus have organized themselves very well, and they have come up with their own temples. They're a very strong community, vibrant community. They have their own
Oh,
media, their own MP, their own MPPs, like MLAs. So that rift because of 84, after 84, things definitely changed. There was definitely a divide among the communities that gradually started after 84 and now is become so apparent. The communities are like, they
so
don't
if I
see.
can just ask a follow-up question, do the Sikhs, the Canadian Sikhs who live in Canada, do they really want? Did they leave because they wanted a better life in Canada? Clearly,
That's right.
abroad, or are they now being co-opted into Khalistan? The whole idea of Khalistan because it's it's what their MPs and their leaders are pushing for. I mean, it's basically, or it's just obviously it's a power game. The Khalistan push is a power game, but is it really? Wouldn't it pose a national security threat for Canada itself? Because this is Sikh extremism at its worst.
Yeah. You see, that's very interesting. Uh, I was recently conducting some interviews, and I sent a questionnaire to some of the people, the Indian diaspora all over the world. And one lord from England, he sent a message. He said Canada should not support Khalistan, and it should stop doing this. And he said even if the Canada wants Khalistan, it should give some land from within Canada to Khalistan. So that is the extent. But you see, the issue is when we say the Sikh MPs, they are not basically supporting Khalistan or saying anything, but they are not opposing it. You see,
Ah, why is
yeah.
that?
So yeah, because they think they have a vote bank, because the Indian community is very strong. Many, in every constituency, there are Sikhs, there are Hindus. So they cannot antagonize the Hindu community or Muslim community or things like this. So they support everyone. Same is the case with the Hindu MPs. That is because in the politics of
Uh,
vote, you have to have people with you.
you know,
So, but
ah,
sometime when they go to, like when they participate in
yeah,
Baisakhi Day parade,
thank
Baisakhi
you.
Day parade. So all MPs, they come there and they show up there, and their people, pro Khalistan people, they also come. They hold demonstration, they shout slogans, they carry flags, things like this. And when the MPs are there, so they normal impression goes that they are supporting this movement. They are there, their presence is there, they make speeches there, and things like this. And also, at times, they voice their concern over what happened in India in 84, and they demand why no action has been taken, no justice has been done. So when they raise those issues, so immediately they are termed as pro-Khalistan.
I see.
Though they talk about like what happened and why no justice has been done, why people who carried out those killings in Delhi and other places after 84 Indira Gandhi's assassination, why not many people have been convicted and they're still waiting. So when they raise these issues, they're straightway termed as they are pro-Khalistanis.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is one angle which has divided the community. And when people say like we should, why no action was taken, why the Sikhs bombed the Kanishka?
Hmm.
Yes, whatever. Some people were arrested, they were convicted, and they are in jail. And some afterwards they came out of jail and they're still in jail. But they say when action was taken for Kanishka thing, why not action against 84 things?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when they raise these issues, so then the community says, no, they are talking about Khalistan. And even for farmers' agitation, for example, in Canada, the community was so divided.
Yeah,
Most of the people, they come from rural background in Punjab. So they supported farmers' agitation, saying it's a very democratic process of protest. And but it was termed they are supporting farmers, so they are Khalistanis. So
hmm. Yes,
these
that's
are
what.
the policies which are pushing people to other side.
Yeah,
They are
yeah.
not for Khalistan. They are not for anything. They are very patriotic, and they are sending money. They are investing in India. They are calling people from India, and students are coming a large number, but all the actions are misconstrued.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
actions like
I agree with you,
we
Mr.
are
Singh.
trying to, instead of moving the community back into the fold, we are trying to move the community away
Yes,
by
yes.
actions, by such a certain pronouncements, certain announcements, and certain actions. Why people should suffer now? You see, 2 million people of Indian origin, they will suffer because of lack of consular services, passport services. They won't be able to go to India without now embassies being functional or high commission being functional, consulates being functional. Even now, Jagmeet and others, they have demanded, six in Canada, in Vancouver side, they have demanded that even the consulates in Toronto and Vancouver should be shut down.
Yes, yes, I
You
heard
see,
that.
but ultimately, who is going to suffer? It's the
Yeah,
common man who is not for Khalistan, who has nothing to do with Khalistan. He has come here for his career, for economic or financial reasons, or for securing future of his or her children, and they
that's
are
right.
here.
I'm
So,
going to
but
have to bring in, I wanted to bring in Siddharth Chattopadhyay. He's the Director General of the state, the former Director General of the state of Punjab. So, you've obviously seen it from the inside, Mr. Chattopadhyay. Do tell us, we've been discussing the fact that the Khalistan threat is something that is very real in Canada, because this is something that is being used by the politicians in Canada to win votes, to control the narrative. Now, in Punjab itself, we've received so many reports, we read so many stories, about Pakistan stoking the flames. There's a senior Canadian official called Vanessa Loy who's actually said so. She said it's the drug network, that the Khalistan drug smuggling network originates from Pakistan, and drugs like heroin and amphetamine are smuggled, brought into India, smuggled out of Europe and North America and Canada, for years now. So is this a drug smuggling network that poses a threat to India, by under the cover of the Khalistan, movement?
Uh, the Khalistan movement, which was there early 80s to, let's say, early 90s, more than a decade, that set back Punjab by more than 20 years. The effects of that movement in economic terms, socio-economic terms, political terms, in every way, was very disastrous. We are, in fact, still limping. And the debt burden on the state government is huge, immense. A lot of people left the state to re-establish themselves in other states or other countries. The point which you're making is about the drug narco-terrorism. So I have pointed this out that even in those days, we used to catch these caches of arms and weapons. There used to be an element of drugs even at that time, a
I see.
small element. Yes, even at that time. I'm talking about the
Mm,
80s and 90s.
mm.
Now that reversed. That reversed, and now it is more of drugs and less of weapons.
I
And what
see.
is, yes, what is being used in a big way is these drones, uh, so that they can overcome the border security force and other security issues, which is also being looked into by the BSF and Punjab Police together. But this is a very real threat because it's destroying the socio-economic fabric of the state. It's really scary when you see entire villages where the youth between the age of 15 to nearly 40, 45 are missing. Those who are present are victims of drug abuse, addicts who are lying in bed in a bad shape. Those who are healthy have moved out to other states to work or gone abroad. And this is something which
So
is
there is an
scary.
exodus of the young and the fit from Punjab,
Absolutely.
and that
Absolutely.
that exodus is heading mainly to Canada.
In a very major way, and I would call it a mirage. Neena, as we were speaking before when we were discussing the subject, one is the concept of Khalistan itself, as Mr. Prabhjot saying, and I totally agree with him on all the points. very well highlighted that there is a feeling and there are misgivings and there is misinterpretation. Someone needs to engage with the community. You know, when the Punjab police, and Punjab police is a great force, and the way we brought it around, it was there's something people don't know. People have been only blaming Punjab police for various things. It is by connecting, by engaging with the community, by engaging with the masses, by engaging with the local public, that we could manage this, that we overcame the threat. So the movement was curbed and very effectively and efficiently. So what's important is that someone needs to engage with the public. This concept of Khalistan itself is very misplaced.
So
And
you're saying it's a manufactured
yes,
narrative.
it is. It's on record for various reasons, which was again hijacked by foreign powers or forces and the deep state, as it is called now. And this thing took a very ugly turn. Now, let me tell you something that even today there are elements, very major elements of the mafia or the Khalistan groups, which are based abroad, which are
Hmm.
directing, conducting, supervising attacks within Punjab in India, even today, as we speak. And they are wanted by the Punjab police for major crimes, for leading and directing major crimes in India. So they are based in UK, Canada, USA, Pakistan, various places. It's well known, it's documented. And they claim responsibility for these crimes.
Ambassador, if I can come back to you, what is going to be the biggest takeaway from this kind of slander of senior officials in the Indian government by that Washington Post story? I mean, there's also, I mean, we've actually avoided talking about it in the open, Indian officials. I haven't actually named the senior, national security advisor and the former head of RAW.
You know, I
What
think
do you think there's going to be a fallout of that, or will there be some kind of move by India and the US to mend fences, India and Canada to move forward?
you see, I think let's not equate India, Canada, and India, US. But before I go there, I would just like to talk about the Washington Post article that you referred to. You
Yeah.
called it slander. It is probably, I would have used a stronger word. But if you read that article, it even names our Home Minister.
It
And that
does.
is absurd, and Mr. Chattopadhyay will bear me out. The RNAW does not report to the Home Minister if the RNAW is actually involved. So there is no question of the Home Minister being involved. However, I mean, the story itself is being planted by, again, I use the word deep state, and we all know which deep state would have planted that story. And it is meant to malign. I think it is so very clear that the Indian narrative on what Mr. Trudeau is up to, and our statement, the Ministry of External Affairs statement, I think of the 14th or 15th of October, was very, very categorical. I've never seen in my 37 odd years in the Foreign Service a statement attacking the head of state or head of government, in this case, of a supposedly friendly country. So obviously, I mean, the sort of accusations, the slanderous sort of, the attempt to drag the government at the highest level into this sort of thing where there is really no evidence provided by the Canadian side is absolutely astonishing. So I think, how do you retrieve it? I can safely say, as long as Justin Trudeau is Prime Minister of Canada, I don't see much chance of any great improvement in our relationship. As far as the United States is concerned, we have a multifaceted relationship. So we must see it in the context of the larger relationship that we enjoy with the US. And I'm sure that that relationship is based on mutual complementarities and mutual need. So I think that relationship may get affected, may get impacted by this thing, but whether it will be a blip or whether it will be something more, only time will tell.
Yeah, that is interesting. Mr. Chattopadhyay, if I can just come back to you for a minute, could you tell us something about this? I think from that Washington Post story, the fact that it is Lawrence Bishnoi who's sitting in a Sabarmati jail, that is being who's being named as behind all of these hits. And is that, I mean, is that even a possibility? I mean, or you as a police officer would know. I mean, does this man have the ability to operate from a jail?
Neena, it would be very wrong to even attach any such uh, allegation unless there is evidence. Evidence has not come up as yet. So to say such a thing and to attach it, as Mr. Sinha has very correctly pointed out, I think we have crossed the Lakshman Rekha, if I may use it in Indian terms. They have pointed at the head of our home ministry. He's one of the senior most in our government. And at the very top of the police, at least, the police hierarchy. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible and preposterous. So we don't see any evidence happening. I just mentioned that there is Goldie Brar, there is Arsh Dalla, there are so many of them sitting in the US. We don't point fingers at any of their government officials.
But why?
They're claiming responsibility for crimes happening here, and yet we don't do this. I think we should keep the dignity of the relationship, and there's no point in demeaning each other in this manner. It doesn't lead anywhere.
That's a good
So
point,
that's the
actually.
way I feel.
I agree with you. Mr. Singh, if I can come to you, this spat with Canada, will it affect our relations with Canada on the defense side and on the economy? Because there's a story which appeared in one of the papers today, which talked about how India's purchase of these Canadian-made Striker armored vehicles, which was part of a US plan to co-produce them in India, could hit a snag. I mean, because apparently we use them on our border with China and Ladakh. So what do you see happening? Do you see ties actually being frozen there was supposed to be a meeting on the economy in a couple of days. So will that affect, will it hit a snag, you think? And the other thing that you mentioned about students and visas and all that, there is a drop in the number of students who are applying for visas to colleges in Canada. There's a 60% drop ever since this happened last year, which is quite a big kind of sort of thing that the students in India will be facing. They're looking for alternative countries to apply to.
Yeah, you see, there is quite a substance in this because India has invested heavily in Canada. So the balance of trade lies in favor of India, and Canadian investment in India is also very substantial. So after this diplomatic spat, you see, the businessmen, the traders, they are worried a lot. And even Canadian Commerce Minister, Mary Nag, she said, no, this will not, we will make sure that this doesn't affect, because investments are so heavy and people are so worried because of this fallout. And the number of areas in which both India and Canada have been cooperating, and India have been getting nuclear fuel and lots of other things, and a lot of things they go from Canada, and same way, like for lentils, for example, every Indian, we eat dal roti. So lentils, most of the lentils come from Canada. So, yeah. So then we have other, issues also, like people to people, because students are coming here every year, not in hundreds, not in thousands, but in lakhs. So that's the one area where people from villages in Punjab are deserted because you don't find a Punjabi youth there. They are all moved to Canada. So that's the demography of Punjab is changing, and people are in Canada, not in Punjab anymore. So lots of them are moving every year, 2 lakh, 3 lakh, 4 lakh are moving only to Canada. So this is, you see, affecting every area of life, especially the trade and industry. Other day, Chamber of Commerce, Canadian Chamber of Commerce, they held a meeting and they were very apprehensive how things will go. The trade relations between the two countries will go. And the government of Canada has to step in. He says, no, this is a separate issue. This has nothing to do with our other relations, the trade relations, the economic relations. They will continue as it is. But people, they feel no, they are making a statement only, because when the consular services are not there, when embassies are not functional, when the visits have been curtailed, people are not visiting Canada, Canada people are not visiting India, how come the trade will stay the same or will grow? You see, one thing we must admit here is for last 25 to 30 years, I've been hearing both from India and Canada, whenever there are meetings, so they have been saying the bilateral trade will reach 15 billion mark. But the target was 2010, then it was extended to 2015. Now it's 2024. It is still not reached even 10 billion.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's why, because of uncertainty, the trade between the two countries, which could grow manifold, because people in Canada, companies in India, like Mahindra's, Tata's, all, they have huge investments in Canada. But Canadian companies also have some investments in India, but that is not that much as Indian companies have invested in Canada. So India's interest in Canada is much more as far as trade is concerned compared to Canadian interest in India. Canada is only like time and again saying clean energy and other things they can help India with. But now, once this deadlock is there, so all those things which we have been talking about for last 20, 25 years, they are only in papers. Nothing has happened. Nothing has progressed on those fronts. People could benefit a lot if the relations are little cordial and little friendly, and people can go and come and invest, and there are opportunities everywhere for both the countries to do that.
Concluding remarks, gentlemen, I'm running out of time. So if I could have final words from all of you, we start with you, Mr. Sinha.
Well, as far as the spat is concerned, I'll confine myself to the spat. I think it is very important that cool heads prevail, especially in Canada, so that this matter can be resolved in a civilized manner. And I again repeat, megaphone diplomacy will never work. It doesn't work. And you'd be surprised. I mean, I'm very happy to note that just recently there was a statement, I think, on X by the Congress Party spokesperson supporting the government. If I remember that tweet, that it referred to Trudeau as, and not my words, as a joke. So I think there is obviously a realization in India, and the opposition, as you know, Neena, is very vociferous and can criticize the government on any issue, and every issue. They have the freedom to do so, and they do so. But I think everybody realizes that this has become a national issue. And accusing India and accusing the High Command, again, I repeat that, and pardon me for repeating it often, that the High Commissioner, who is the representative of the President of India, is involved like a crime syndicate boss in extortion and others, is ludicrous. So I think we need to ensure that the temperatures are dialed down. And I can tell you, I mean, the Canadian side can marshal whoever they want and bring them on television, Parliament. They are not going to cut any ice as far as India is concerned. It has
But
to
would you consider the US coming in as an intermediary rather than poking its its nose where it shouldn't? Because I mean it is the one that has handed over the intelligence on this as part of the Five Eyes. Shouldn't the US also call on Justin Trudeau and Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, also caution Justin Trudeau from going ballistic? Wouldn't it be better all around if he was told that foreign policy is conducted in a completely different fashion by all other countries?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't like to second guess what the US should or should not do. I think as far as the Five Eyes is concerned, it's an Anglo-Saxon gathering, an Anglosphere gathering. And as far as the FCDO statement, which I read in the UK, calling upon India to, I mean, this is par for the course. We didn't expect anything less from them. And to cooperate. Now, we can only cooperate if hard evidence is shared.
Yeah,
And Mr. Chattopadhyay, who's far more
I
experienced
agree.
in handling investigations, will bear me out that if you do not produce any evidence and base yourself and make accusations based on intelligence obtained from a third party, and then expect, it harks back to the colonial days. So you expect the brown or the black or whatever to sort of open up and say yes, yes, and this is our please come and investigate. It doesn't work that way. It won't. It didn't work then. It won't work certainly now in India. So I think we need to be very mindful of that. And if the United States feels that it must caution and advise Mr. Trudeau and the Canadians, it's up to them. Frankly, we will deal with whatever situation that we have to deal with.
Mr. Chattopadhyay, I know you have to go because you've got a flight to catch. So if you could just quickly give me an idea, do you think that as a police officer, you would have handled this in the sense as Ambassador Sinha said earlier in the show, he said we've already asked Canada to hand over 26 guys who are some of whom are part of the Bishnoi gang. Should we also include Mr. Pannoon and and Jagmeet Singh? Jagmeet Singh has now said that the RSS should be banned as an organization, which will again drive a real wedge between the Hindus and the Sikh community in Canada.
Neena, I feel that it's political compulsions and political overtones which are partially influencing or in a major way influencing these statements. And for years, 36 years I've worked, and there have been innumerable cases where I've worked with the FBI, with the RCMP, with Scotland Yard, and we've sorted out major cases on both sides, whether it was on our ground, our land, or their land. And there's been absolutely no issue. And there is a laid down procedure for this. There are agencies, there is a method, there is a system which is accepted bilaterally, mutually, and there has never been an issue. So this is rather odd that it should come out in this way and where there is no evidence. And likewise, we have a list of criminals sitting over there directing crime over here, but we don't lead it on to the head of state. So this needs to stop, and the Khalistan bogey of Khalistan needs to be stopped now. Because what happened years back? Why is it? It's for India. It's something I want to highlight. In India, we don't have an issue. In Punjab, we don't have a Khalistan issue because people saw through it. It was hell. And nobody wants a comeback. Nobody wants this situation to come back on ground. So it's only being done from a from some other land. Why? So they need to see the truth. And reality is that nobody wants Khalistan. Someone has to engage with them and put some sense into them. So there is no such issue over here. So I feel that rather than spoil the relations between to otherwise nations which were doing very well bilaterally, mutually, where students, traders, and other migrants have gone before, as Mr. Prabhjot Singh and Mr. Sinha have pointed out. It's in our mutual interest to tone down this rhetoric and go towards the systems for investigation which are laid down. I'm sure they'll bear results. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Singh, final word from you. So Canada's Justin Trudeau is turning a blind eye knowingly on the threat posed by this rhetoric by his Sikh, the person that he needs to keep in power. So is that going to change in the weeks to come? Will he see reason? Will he be pushed into doing things differently? How do you see it panning out?
You see, Canada has been facing so many problems over the years, of especially the foreign interference. They Chinese government had set up police stations in Canada, so they took it very seriously, and they were trying to close them down, but still there are allegations that those police stations are working. And then came out this India spat. You see, I think this shouldn't have been made public. There are channels, as Mr. Sinha and Mr. Chattopadhyay said, there are channels, there are organizational structures that can take care of these issues when there are problems. But unfortunately, this organizational structure has been ruptured. That's why it has spread all over and created so much of bad blood between the two nations. So the best thing is if they had handled it, even if now, though it's a little late, to stop this slanderous attack on each other and cooperate and find out like whosoever are the culprits. Because in the larger interest of people, to promise them safety and security, those criminals, gangsters, shouldn't be allowed to have their way. Now they are making use of this opportunity because of these relations. They will their activities will go up. They will think the governments are
So do
supporting
you
them.
think Trudeau,
Yeah.
will to sail
Both
through?
sides. You see, now Lawrence Bishnoi says, like police says and other agencies say, he has a tremendous reach. He can strike anywhere, sitting from jail. If he is claiming that he was behind, he claimed responsibility of Niger's murder, thing like this. So when these things are said, so that send a message, wrong message. So there should be some action be taken so that these activities and the system, the organizational structure should function as it used to function. Expelling diplomats is nothing new. It has been there for ages, decades. Different countries have been expelling diplomats on different grounds. That's not the case. But the issue is how one case or two cases or these aberrations have spoiled good relations between two nations which have a very strong people-to-people relationships. So
Thank you.
if they see the reason and they try to negotiate and talk to each other and solve these issues bilaterally without making it public, and let the system, the organizations, the agencies, the police, the politicians, the bureaucracy, the diplomacy, everything work together so that these issues can be sorted out as is the practice bilaterally and as is the practice internationally. So I think dialogue is the best way to solve this crisis and end this impasse.
So
That's
basically,
my
the conclusion is that while Bindranwale is a creature of the past, and we still have to deal with this Amritpal Singh, who's come out of nowhere. India and Canada should work together on this shared, terror threat or whatever the compulsions are that challenge the relationship. I mean, Trudeau has to put his nation's interests first over his own political survival, I think. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sarab, Mr. Prabhjot Singh, and Mr. Chattopadhyay for coming on the show. Thank you, viewers. Do click on the New Indian Express website and watch Global Express.